Good morning. It is Thursday, May 7th, and you are here for AP Biology. And today's discussion is about test review for the AP test. Your AP test will be on May 18th. That's Monday. And I am aware that many of you have multiple AP classes, and so I know that you are now in the final stages of cramming for your AP tests. So let me remind you, the primary way that we study for the AP test and prepare for the AP test is to go through the material slowly and methodically throughout the school year. And in addition, your teachers like Mr. Hasty, Miss Irwin, myself, have been preparing you for the writing portion of the AP test with those practice ORQs. And of course, Mr. Uh, Galt and Mr. Wiest have been prepping you on how to answer those math questions as well. So, I mean, your whole life has been prep and leading up into this AP test. So, rest assured, you have been preparing and you're going to be fine. But there are some strategies that we can now employ in addition to that preparation to help you be successful on the AP test. And I think at this point, with all of the tests that you're taking, the one thing that with AP Biology may overwhelm you is just the magnitude of the content. It's massive. And so you can get a little lost in the details. So my suggestion is that we approach this study systematically. When I was reading your natural selection response questions, and I've finished all of fourth period and just barely started fifth, but I will continue to provide feedback for you on those. And if you want to take those feedback suggestions and resubmit them, I'd be more than happy to read them over so that you can raise your grade if that's what you wish to do. But as I was reading them, I noticed that a lot of you were pulling, I think because we are at home on COVID lockdown, from other sources, such as the internet. So I think it's important that you remember that you will only be tested on the material that AP says you will be tested on, which is in the course outline and description, or they call it the CED. That's the big 194-page document that you can get to on AP. Now, 194-page document is great for me as a teacher to go throughout the year and look to see if I'm hitting all of the major points for you. But it's way too much for you to consider when you're studying for the tests, which is why I posted the Unit at a Glance, which has the essential knowledges and enduring understandings for each of the 6 units that you'll be tested on. Obviously, we're not going to be tested on the ecology or the evolution unit because of the changes for this year. So go through those. In addition to that, there's, in addition to the course outline, there's the essential knowledges, student diagnostics that you did at the beginning of the year, but one thing to look at with regard to the essential knowledges, student diagnostics, no, I can't pronounce that word today, student diagnostics that we did is, those weak spots that you marked at the beginning of the year, and make sure that you've solidified your understanding. So under the classwork tab, I put in next week's assignment already. Now it is not due until Sunday night, May 17th. But basically next week's assignment is to study. I'm still going to be here at 9 a.m. every day so that you can pop in and ask questions. And of course, you need to complete this week's assignment first. It's probably going to take me providing, really good feedback for you on those ORQs. It's going to take a while. So that's going to take over the course of next week, probably with multiple submissions, as going back and forth. So you'll still be working on those first. But next week's assignment is essentially test prep. First of all, as you can see, I said that you need to know what you're expected to know, which means, of course, review these essential knowledges and make sure that when you are thinking about constructing your answers on the test, that you are referring specifically to those essential knowledges. For example, when I asked for evidences of evolution, I was getting examples on a lot of the natural selection responses. And specifically, evidences of evolution is one of the essential knowledges. Whoops, that's not what I wanted to do. It's one of the essential knowledges. And so when you look at it, you should be picking out those words. Essential knowledges is that you understand that embryology or ontology, which is developmental biology of the embryos, shows similarities amongst species that are related. In fact, lots of times certain organs appear in embryological development that do not present in the adult, that sort of thing. So you need to be choosing those really specific terms. So says know what you need to expect. Here we go. Scroll down to the bottom. So that has the AP at a glance sheet. I think I somehow, no, I didn't. I was thinking I got 2 copies of the first, but I did it. Maybe I did. I don't know. Maybe I did. Anyway, you're going to go through and you're going to review those essential knowledges. In addition, there's like flashcards. If that is what helps you study, if you want to print these, then you can just flip through them. Now, these are my big ideas, so it includes all 4 of the big ideas, and big idea 1 is, of course, evolution. So if you want to print those and study them, write cues for yourself on the back, then I just put those there because I thought that was cool. I found them on the internet and I thought it was a nice resource for you. The next thing that you need to do is not only know which aspects of the content that you're supposed to know, but know the content itself. And I was thinking about, as an AP biology teacher, how I would restructure the test, given the fact that you only have 2 open response questions from which we have to, as AP graders, as we have to construct the test as AP administrators to somehow evaluate you based on that. And I know initially I told you that I thought for certain that there was going to be a genetic expression ORQ and a cell signal transduction ORQ, which we obviously have prepped for really well. That was based on you taking the whole test. Now with the revisions, I think that you're going to have to expect and be prepared for a long question that's going to give you lab data. And usually you have one of those on the test, but it's not more than half your grade. So what I have done on that classwork tab for prep for you, I think a really good way for you to review the content that's new and fresh is to go to the website that is listed here. There's actually a couple of them. The first one is probably the most difficult one, but I'm afraid it's going to show up on the test because it's one of the newer contents from this year, the 2019 revision, which is restriction enzyme reannealing, and we talked a little bit, but really only hit on the periphery of that. So I would recommend that you do that lab, and it's a virtual lab. So I'm not asking you to give me the answers. I'm just asking you to read through the information, run through the simulation so that that's fresh in your mind and that you will understand what it means when you're looking at a plasmid and if it's going to cut and cleave in certain areas. I talked about it, but we did not have the opportunity to do a lab simulation before we left. Another one is bacterial identification. which is looking at ribosomal RNA sequences of bacteria, because bacteria all, have circular chromosomes and very few coding sequences, so they really have a lot in common. They use ribosomal RNA to distinguish between them. So there's a virtual lab on that. And again, that's a newer content that was just added this year. I feel like my guess would be you're going to have one or the other on every test. And then the additional labs, you can go to the Pearson Lab Bench and run through, of course, a lot of this we covered: diffusion and osmosis, enzyme catalysis, mitosis and meiosis, photosynthesis, cellular respiration. The molecular biology is one that I highlighted. This is a bacterial transformation lab. So that's one that I think that you should actually absolutely perform. Another one that I highlighted that I think that you should absolutely perform is this dissolved oxygen one, because it really is not about dissolved oxygen. What it is it's about energy and the movement of energy, primary production, and how you can determine the basically total biomass or carrying capacity of an ecosystem based on the amount of primary production. So I think that if I was an AP person, I would possibly choose that as a question for the test. So I highlighted them, or I starred them there with 4 asterisks: the comparative DNA lab, the restriction enzyme lab, molecular biology, and the energy dynamics or dissolved oxygen. And then I also highlighted enzymes. Even though I feel like we hit that hard, I do think that is a likelihood. Now, if you have time, I would say go through all of them, because they are going to help you with reviewing the basic content in a very visual way. And since I'm not asking you to write any of this down or send me pics, you should be able to run through the labs that you're very familiar with the content with, which would be pretty much everything that isn't starred, in a short period of time. Just run through them, review it, and then take the practice tests. So I put a link here. These are online practice tests. I know you already took the written one, and I wanted you to take the written one because I wanted you to go slow and really stop and think. Hello, Emma. That's everybody but Aubrey, I think. So the AP practice tests, I suggest you do them by unit, simply because that's how your textbook is organized, and that will help you. Also, which units are your weakest. And so when you click on it, I think it does about 25 questions. It'll run you through which property of water allows it to move upward from the roots, okay? And so it's cohesion, and then it explains it, runs over not only the essential knowledges, but the application of the essential knowledge within the framework of the enduring understanding. And so do that. You can pace yourself. Obviously, I know you have other AP classes to study from, but I just wanted to make sure that I gave you a systematic way to approach the review. When you're done, which is on Sunday night, this is due at 8:30 p.m. You're going to just go into this document and you're going to tell me what you did to review. If you felt like you were really strong in a certain area and you wanted to highlight the other, and that's what you studied, you can tell me. I just skipped right over, the unit 1 and 3 and 4 tests, and I highlighted the other units and took them multiple times. Just write me, tell me what you did so that I can assign you a fair grade. But again, my goal is to give you the time to review. So I'm probably still going to be texting you like every morning, reminding you that you need to get up and study for the AP tests. All right. Questions, type those in the chat for me, please. 3. Yeah. Aubrey is here. Is free response and open response the same thing? Absolutely, yeah. I think the AP test calls them free response. Extended FRQs and short answer FRQs. But they're both going to be extended FRQs. Okay, 2 more messages. About how long does each virtual lab take? Kara, I don't, I don't honestly know. I would imagine that 15 minutes you could run through. 15 minutes. So yeah, that leaves you, like, I would say the whole thing probably is about 8 hours. Do I recommend using Khan Academy? No, I don't. I mean, if you're looking for videos to watch to try and shortcut, and I know you're not trying to shortcut, but because you've read everything and you're looking for a supplement, but so those people who are looking to try and shortcut, I would recommend Bozeman Science over Khan Academy, because Mr. Anderson teaches AP biology, and he created those videos based on the original, like 2008, I believe, AP bio content, revised them in 2013, and has revised them again, at least adding supplements for the 2019-2020 revision. Khan Academy, I think, is it's just too general. All right, I'm going to unmute you. We can just hang out. Are the videos released by the AP College Board Supplemental? I looked at the videos released by the AP College Board. Originally, when we were going on COVID lockdown, what they did was they asked some AP teachers across the country, who basically, they teach in these really huge schools, and that's all they teach is AP biology. Like, their whole life is AP biology. And so they asked them to come up with these videos to help teachers supplement the content. So the majority of them are on ecology and evolution, although there does appear to be like one video on each unit, 1 through 6. Which the chi-squared question on the practice test is the one that you're talking about? Okay, so chi-squared is basically it's a mathematical calculation, and it's a deviation from the mean. So it's basically a measure of how good your data is, because if you have data points that give you a line, and the data points, I hope that you'll be able to see this, are kind of closely grouped on the page, meaning that none of them really are that far from the line that you determine, then you're going to get a low value for that. But if your data points are kind of all over the place, and we put some other data points in there that are further out, then they're going to be farther apart. But I'd be more than happy to sit down with you and do that particular question after everybody takes off. Any other questions? Yes, please. Okay. All right, so again, my benediction is upon you. I really feel like you all are prepped and ready. Your writing is coming, really coming around. I can't think of anybody who's not honing their writing down to being very systematic and very detailed at the same time. So you guys are ready. Finish up this week's assignments so that I can give you feedback on those 2 FRQs that you chose, and then study for your other classes, but also start working through this AP bio material. Do we just attach a document for the ORQs on the practice test you assign on Tuesday? You can either open them in DocHub and type on them, If you need to type over the top, it depends on which ORQ you picked. Like the one with the cladogram, it's easier to open it in just the genetics one. If you have chose one like that where you need to write on it, it's easier to open it in DocHub. But if you want, you can also open it in Word, and hopefully you won't lose too much of your content. The thing about Word is that it will allow you to insert text in between the questions. Any other questions? I'm turning recording off at this time. Stick around if you want to stick around.